Now, I'd walked in on bodies on the ground, all that usual stuff. But this one time I just had this sick feeling in my stomach. Anyway, so I was turning on some of the lights and my partner says to me, just be careful. We don't know how he could be. He had dementia. Yep. I said, okay, cool. And I'm calling his name and I walked into the bedroom and I switched on the light. He's laying in the bed and he sits up like a zombie, just sits up. And I look at him and he looks at me and by the side of the bed, he has...
You can only have one watch. What is it?
Oh, gosh.
Tick, 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 tick.
It's got to be have a look at the movement. It is like a small city. Yeah, that's how beautiful it is. It's handcrafted, hand engraved, and it's just a piece of art. So Dad started a company called Discount Toner Recharge. He was one of the first guys cleaning cartridges in our basement. I remember he used to come in at night time covered in soot, like he used to look like he worked at the coal mines. For that reason, he had a triple bypass that caused a lot of problems, but he was always a hard worker. And I remember him, he created a business young, he worked hard, and I remember he said to me, if you work hard at anything, you're going to be able to do it. That's the key. So I took that on board, and he said to me after, you're not going to go to uni, what are you going to do? And I said...
Today with our guest Michael Timson, we're diving into the world of the luxury watch industry. Michael is a seasoned entrepreneur and the manager of one of the country's most exclusive high-end watch retailers. Michael's name is known among collectors, celebrities and high net worth clients who trust him with sourcing some of the rarest timepieces on the planet. From private showroom appointments to sourcing multi-million-dollar pieces, Michael has built a business that combines heritage, exclusivity and trust. We'll explore the art of selling time, the psychology behind luxury buying, and what it really takes to thrive at the top end of the market. Michael, welcome to Tats from the Top.
Who's this Michael guy? He sounds amazing, mate. I want to meet him. It's not me.
We're waiting for him to turn up.
Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
That's great.
Yeah, obviously we want to dive into the world of watches, but before we do, we'd just love to, find out a bit more about you and your upging and your
Where do you want
early
me to start?
influences.
My upbringing?
At the very beginning.
At the very
deep,
beginning.
dark mists of time.
Can I get you just
My mother had me in...
get on the mic a little bit more?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no worries. Sorry about that. Very beginning. Okay. Went to St. Ignatius College. Mm-hmm. Parents always wanted a very good education for me. My parents are hardworking people. They come from a background where, my mum worked 3 jobs. My dad worked, 2 jobs, and they did everything they could to put me through school. I, at a young age, hung around with a few of the wrong people. And got myself in all sorts of trouble.
Bad boy.
Yeah, well, I was bored at school. I didn't love school. I didn't love the routine and the regimentation that happens. I just couldn't put myself in that box. So I got kicked out of St. Ignatius in year 10.
Well done.
Yeah, that wasn't a proud moment for me, I tell you. I remember seeing my mother cry in the principal's office, and I thought, wow, can I swear on this one? I really fucked up big time on this one. Yeah. And I was lucky enough that the headmaster actually liked me. He said to me, he goes, you're actually a really smart kid, but we, for some reason, just can't keep you entertained. Mm-hmm. And he said, I don't want to expel you. So he found me a new college, a new school, and said, look, I suggest you go over there because I think all boys is going to be better for you. I didn't think it was, but he said it will. So my mum and dad took his advice and went over there, and he was right. I absolutely fell in love with Ross Trevor as a school. I made lifelong friends.
Yep. So was there a girl involved in this early fracas that saw you out?
Do you know what? There was a bit of a problem. I had a young girlfriend at the time, and there was a brother there. I won't mention any names, but it was a Jesuit school, and he grabbed me one day and he pulled me in really close and he said, you need to get out of her personal space. And and when he grabbed me, it was pretty physical. And I sort of leaned over to him.
Today's episode is sponsored by us, Chiron Audio and Devison Design.
At Chiron, we enrich people's lives with music systems that create lifelike 3-dimensional images that evoke real emotional responses and allow true connection to recorded music. With our strategic partners, we can help you create the ultimate environment to enjoy your Chiron music system. From interior design guidance through to an entire bespoke listening room, we can assist you to bring your dream to life. Life is better with music, and music is better with Chiron.
Devison Design creates luxury garage environments for the discerning automotive collector, preserving your collection in surroundings that are more gallery than garage, and so enhancing the value of your enjoyment. With projects across Australia and Europe, Devison Design provides design services worldwide. Truly bespoke garages start with inspiring designs. Let Devison Design inspire you.
To get in touch with one of our principals directly, visit our website, chironaudio.com.au or devisondesign.com.au to book a consultation.
And now on with the show.
And I whispered in his ear, I said, if you ever touch me again, I'm going to stab you.
Wow.
It was pretty full on, yeah. And I regret that. And I apologise if you're still alive. It's not me now. But it was pretty full on. It really upset me afterwards. I didn't mean to say that, but I was so taken back by the frustration. And I knew I did the wrong thing and I apologised. But moving forward from that, Ross Trevor, I got there at the school and the first class I went to on the first day, all the boys were out of control, mate. Like, I honestly, the teacher turned his back to write something on the wall and everybody was jumping up and down, screaming profanities. It was insane. And I thought, you know what? I'm actually a good kid compared to the rest of these animals here. I think I'm going to fit in.
So this is not the back end government school where they send all the delinquents.
No, this is a nice college.
This is a high-end private college in the nice burbs.
Yeah, this is 20 plus years ago, so I'm sure it's all changed now. But
they're all in prison.
Yeah.
Or in politics.
Exactly right. They are, a few of them actually. But so from there, I didn't know what. I finished year 12 and my parents said to me, what are you going to do? You're going to go to uni. I got pretty good grades, 97, something like 98.
Much better
than
so it would have been medicine, 98, 99?
I missed out on medicine and I wanted to do paramedics, but I jumped into thinking I wanted to do some sort of business. And so I did business management and technology, and that lasted, I think, 6 months. I said to my dad, this is rubbish. I can't do this. I want to learn a lot more about starting a business. And for some reason, in me as a personality, I just want to do things and I want to do it my way, and I can't help that. If I learn the hard way, it's a whole lesson that I've learned. Yeah. But at least I've done it my way.
You see that pattern so often, don't you? With the entrepreneur, bored at school. Yeah, exactly. It's definitely not unusual.
No. So my old man, he was a hard worker. He actually, I don't know if you heard of Cartridge World.
Yes.
Yeah. So Dad started a company called Discount Toner Recharge. He was one of the first guys cleaning cartridges in our basement. I remember he used to come in at night time covered in soot. Like he used to look like he worked at the coal mines.
Yeah. Right.
For that reason, he had a triple bypass. It caused a lot of problems, but he was always a hard worker. And I remember him, he created a business young. He worked hard. And I remember him, he said to me, if you work hard at anything, you're going to be able to do it. That's the key. Yeah. So I took that on board, and he said to me after, you're not going to go to uni, what are you going to do? And I said, I want to start a business. That's what I want. And he goes, okay, I like that. What's your idea? And I said, I'd love to do a jewelry company. And he goes, all right, well, how are you going to do that? I said, I don't know yet, but I'm going to come back to you. And he goes, you come back to me on the business plan. And if I like the business plan, I'll give you some money. And if I don't, you got to buy a house because I think you need to get in early. And I thought, I don't need a house. You got a beautiful house. I love living home.
And my mum does the washing.
Yeah, my mum does the and I've got a Sicilian mother. So you can imagine the cooking, the cleaning, everything's done for me. Why would I move out?
Exactly.
So are we talking to an only child?
No, I've got two sisters.
Okay. Yep. Are you the youngest or
I'm the oldest.
Right.
I'm the oldest. I've got a middle sister who's very strategic and very smart, very calculated, and she joined the Air Force and she became a sergeant in the Air Force. Unfortunately, she got kicked out during COVID. She didn't get the vaccine, neither did I, but she didn't get that. Yeah. And she lost her job after 15 years, I think it was, which was pretty sad. And I got a younger sister who's in childcare, and she's the baby of the family, and we love her very much, but everyone protects her.
Yeah. Spoiled.
She'll hate it that I said that, but yeah, she's spoiled. But we do love her.
The youngest children always do. Now, I'm not talking or looking at Jeremy over here, but
or me.
That's right, or baby face.
Yeah,
I associate with your sister because the middle child has the toughest gig.
Yeah, that's what she says.
The hardest life, and everything is down to us.
And they've got it all together, apart from you.
You may be right.
Well, she thinks she's got it all together, but she's done a really good job. She's got 3 beautiful children, a loving husband. So
that's
she's done well.
That's great stuff.
Yeah. So I had a a friend, I'll say, that had a jewelry business already that she'd started with her brother, and we got along quite well. She was actually my wife's sister-in-law at the time, and she asked me. She said, "Do you want to come work for me? Just to give me a hand. I need some help. You know the jewelry industry well. You know." I said, "Yeah, all right. I'll give it. I've got nothing else to do. Might as well come work for you. So let's do it." So I did, and about 2 years in. I said to her, "What are we doing? I can't really keep working here. You know, I'm happy to purchase the business." And she agreed. Her husband had moved to Melbourne, and she said, "Yeah, okay, let's do that." So I purchased the business.
What kind of jewellery are we talking?
So it was a place called Blue Chili Jewelry. So we had a shop in Regent Arcade and one in Rundle Street.
Yep.
And we concentrated on only white materials or metals. So it was sterling silver and white gold. I didn't compete with anybody else. I didn't do anything yellow or like that. And we manufactured. I learnt to make, and I did makes for clients. And I did that for 10 years, which was, traveling overseas,
what was the initial
buying stock.
attraction to jewellery?
Do you know, I've always loved jewelry. I don't know whether it's the Italian in me or whether it's just, you know, me. My sisters don't really love it as much as me. I grew up from an era, I'm 40 now, and I went through a time where I loved hip hop, R&B. That was my era. And people like Biggie and Tupac and all these really, you know, West Side gangsters. And they wore Rolex watches. They wore big gold chains.
So you
they did.
So you were associating
that was awesome.
what you were associating with their style, with
correct.
That's the thing that triggered.
Yeah, and that was just who we hung around with, and that's what we. I mean, you know, we knew the Hilltop Hoods back in the day. We knew a lot of these people, and I had a lot of friends from New York, and that was just the style, and we loved it, and I loved it. And I'll tell you something now. If I took what I really loved back then, I probably would have been too early, but all that jewelry that's happening in America at the moment with diamond encrusted necklaces, Cuban links and things like that. I mean, I was onto that 25 years ago, you know. Now it wasn't cool then, unfortunately, but that's what I loved. And so anyway, so during starting and having the business myself, I managed to go out and branch out into, you know, manufacturing and things like that. And we ran a successful business for 10 years.
So go back a bit. So how old were you when you joined the business, when you got that job? We're talking sort of 19?
Yeah, 19, yeah. Yep.
And then by 21, you're saying, I'm either out or I'm buying you out.
Pretty much. Yeah, which is a big deal for me.
That's a big deal for anyone. I mean, at 21 to say,
it's crazy. I
like the place, but you're not running it right. I want to take over. Here's some money.
Yeah, my parents had a unit. They've got a couple of properties, and they said to me, "Well, if you believe in yourself enough, we can remortgage that unit." That was a big thing for me too.
It's an amazing thing for your parents to do.
And you actually did it too. So it wasn't. Then you see, at 21, you bought a business, and then you're now 10 years into running that.
Yeah, and pay them back, which was a milestone for me. It was a lot of hard work. I've never worked so much. People say these days, I like to work 4 days a week. I work 7 days a week from 9:30 till 5, and then on Friday nights till 9 o'clock. Yeah. Saturdays and Sundays till 5. Like I didn't know anything else but work.
What do you say to those people when they say, I only want to work 4 days a week?
That's this generation, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you say? They're going to be working 4 days a week until they're 95.
Yeah, and I agree with you. But I don't think they want as much. Like, I don't know about you guys, but when I was young, 19, 20, I set myself a goal. When I met my wife, I said to her, nothing's going to stop me. She'll tell you this too. Mm-hmm. By the time I'm 40, I will have my dream home paid off. I want 2 cars in the driveway minimum, and I don't want to worry about money anymore. Mm. And she always jokes to me and she says, you did it, yeah? And I said, yeah, but it came at a price. Yeah. It did. Yeah. And I think everything comes at a price. But the young ones these days, I don't think if they're hungry, they want everything instantaneously. And this is social media now.
It's been a big trend probably. I mean, growing up in the 80s, I can see that period was, for instance, my parents and your parents too, and most like your parents, they grew up in a time when you saved up to buy a fridge, and you hope to have that when you bought your house and you were married, and you got secondhand stuff given to you when you bought or rented your first place, and then you just built it up, and you saved up to buy a good quality piece of furniture that's going to last you. Then there was this big transition, late 80s into the mid 90s, when the buy now, pay later came in.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happened, the secondhand industry stopped, ground to a halt, because instead of having to find $300 to buy a secondhand thing, you could put a brand new thing and pay off $10 a week for the next 25 years.
Exactly.
And I think that was the beginning of that transition of young people now wanting everything new, because there was a mechanism by which
Prices
you could do
dropped
it.
too. I mean, then you had China come in and, you could actually buy a whole bunch of stuff. And, I admire the younger people because they value the experiences. I think that's what, I think that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, which we didn't as much.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
true.
Yeah. Exactly.
We just valued hard work.
Yeah, exactly. So what's from there what was your next step from Blue Chili?
Blue Chili. So before I'd finished, I sort of didn't know. I'm always a planner, so I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something else, but I didn't want to just sell the business or close the business down. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back to uni. Everyone thought I was crazy, and I went and did an adult re-entry, and got the grades I needed again, which I had to do a year course, I think, just to brush myself up, and got straight back into paramedics. That's what I sort of wanted to do.
Wow. So the spiritual need was starting to outweigh the commercial need.
Yeah, it was. I was getting tired. It took a toll. And so I studied at Flints's Uni, which I really enjoyed. Started doing Emerge, started doing patient transfers.
It's a different experience, the mature student, isn't it?
It is a different experience, and I couldn't believe. I don't know how a 19-year-old comes into the police force or the SA ambulance and just goes to work. Like maybe everyone's different, but I used to just see shock and awe sometimes when I used to go to a CVA or something like that.
What's a CVA?
Like a car accident or it was insane. Like, just consoling a younger one. I think the maturity comes into play big time.
Sure does.
Yeah. And I think, I know they need to get fresh people through all the time, but, and I think they manage it quite well, but at the same time, I think life experience makes a huge difference in that industry. For me, it was a little bit too much. I thought, you know what, I enjoyed it for the ups, but the downs were heavy.
Yeah, how do you not take that home?
Well, I did, and that was the issue. Yeah, my wife sort of, I used to...
You had a similar kind of situation, didn't you?
Same thing when I was in SAPOL.
SAPOL is South Australian Police Force.
South Australian Police Force.
Yep.
So first 10 years of adult life, trying to be a great designer and do cool stuff. That 30 to 40 was, and not succeeding where I wanted to be, and then children came along. So it was that 30 to 40 was government job, and I thought, right, grown up loving horses. Well, my sister had horses, and the girls that she knew were great, so I enjoyed that. So I go into South Australian Mounted Police. So I did that, and you see some incredible things. But so we have a very parallel story in that at an age, so it sounds like you're about 30 when you did that, sort of late 20s.
Late 20s,
Yeah, I was late 20s when I went in. And doing that training, seeing how people in their late teens and early 20s trying to grasp with the fundamentals of emergency situations or domestic situations that are deeply rooted in the lives of these people, and these are people in their 30s, 40s, 50s and 60s who have got some real issues. It's very, very confronting. You have to grow up real quick. So I saw some young people do incredible things, and they dug into reserves of training that they've had from a kid in their own background, their own upbringing, doing some incredible things. So I really opened my eyes to a lot of what people could do and what they can dig down into and get.
But did you get a bit frustrated with the regimentation of the police force and the way you had to follow all the,
Oh, look, I went
and...
in there with my thinking, right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be a champ. I'm going to change the world.
Yeah.
And
that doesn't happen.
At 28, you thought, surely you're old enough to know you can't do that.
Yeah.
No. So 3 years it took me to get really frustrated, and then 7 years to realize that, all right, keep working to the goal and then get back into design at 40. At 40, I did that. And so for 16 years now, it's been great. So great fundamental training. So how much did that prepare you for the rest of your life, your time with...
Do you know what's funny?
Ambos?
Like my wife says it was something I was just meant to do, because the amount of times I've seen someone drop of a cardiac arrest in the middle of the Rundle Mall, or I've gone to a car accident on the freeway and I've just pulled over and known what to do straight away.
Yeah.
I had a young girl collapse in my shop, and I managed to help her straight away. And her parents came back and thanked me later, and I thought to myself, that was a small time in my life that maybe I was just meant to learn a little bit of skills.
Yeah.
If it was just to help one person.
Yeah.
And that's how I look back at it now, because I had some experiences there where I'll tell you a funny story. I walked into a house. Actually, we got called to this house. His panic alarm went off. He was an 88-year-old male. And so we couldn't get in the house. So we, I can't remember how, I think we got in through the back door. The back door was open. One of the daughters rang and said, go through the back door. So we did. And all the lights were off in the house. And I distinctly remember going, this doesn't feel good. Something about this doesn't feel good. Now, I'd walked in on bodies on the ground, all that usual stuff. But this one time I just had this sick feeling in my stomach. Anyway, so I was turning on some of the lights. And my partner says to me, just be careful because he's got Alzheimer's and we don't know how he could be.
Yep.
I had dementia. He had dementia.
Yep.
I said, okay, cool. And I'm calling his name, and I walked into the bedroom and I switched on the light, and I shit you not, he's laying in the bed and he sits up like a zombie, just sits up.
Yep.
And I look at him and he looks at me, and by the side of the bed, he has a sawn-off shotgun. Yep. Old Italian guy.
Yeah.
And the whole life went out of me that day, mate. Honestly.
Yeah.
And he dropped it straight away and he just started crying. And I thought, that could have been it.
Yeah.
That was pretty full on for me. I don't think I told many people about that story.
There's these life-changing moments. It's not until you work at the raw edge of life do you understand and appreciate the value of life. And I think once you do that, then you can transition to something else with some dignity and some understanding of what life's really about and some value.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So after that, I sort of thought, you know what, this is not really for me. Me and my wife were going through a little bit of a hard time. And my wife's a really straight shooter. I love it a bit. And she said to me straight.
With a 12 gauge?
Yeah. Sicilian women are more dangerous than a shotgun. Remember that?
Sure.
No, she's not. She's Italian. But
okay.
And she said to me, how do you want to do this? Do we be a statistic? Yeah. Or do we have a good crack at it? And I thought, you know what, that's pretty cool. I said, I've always had a good crack at things. What do you want to do? Because I don't want to do my job anymore. And she said, you know what, neither do I. And I went, okay. So we packed up and we went overseas, and we moved to Amsterdam for a bit. We started off as a holiday, and we stayed there a little bit longer, probably longer than we should,
Or not.
We always talk about going back. She had a lovely auntie over there who we love dearly, who her husband was a head of a petroleum company, and we got to stay in her, which was like a $10 million apartment. So you could never do it. So it was really, really cool. So we lived a whole different experience for a bit, and we thought we could get used to this.
Amsterdam's awesome.
Yeah. Because we're literally there's a river called Prinsengracht, and we literally lived on top of that, and we looked down every day, and it was one of the best times of our lives. We still talk about it now, but it's just not doable. We don't earn that sort of money where, but that connected us on a whole nother level. And we came back stronger for that. And
well done.
Yeah, and when I was over there, I hung out with a few cool cats. They taught me a little bit more about life, and not to stress so much and not to worry so much. We got into religion, me and my wife. We're Catholics, but it came a little bit stronger. And
why do you think that was?
That's a good question. Well, I can tell you another story about that a little bit later, but for now, I think we prayed a lot over that time. We didn't really before, and things managed to work itself out. And my wife always had a strong religious background, and she sort of pushed me a little bit more. So did my father, actually. And I just I found God again more, and thought, you know what, don't worry about this so much, because everything will be all right in the end.
Yep.
And if it's not all right, then it's not the end. So keep going. And I did.
Say that again.
Yeah, I like that.
That's important. Say that again to us.
Yeah,
tell us
that's
that
from
again.
my father. So he said, everything's going to be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, then it's not the end. So that meant a lot to me. And
Very powerful.
Yeah, so we kept going, and we worked out our relationship out quite well. And as I was saying, I hung out with a few cool cats over there, and I started to get into watches while I was over there. I always loved jewelry and watches, but over there really ignited vintage and like they're not materialistic, but they're sentimental.
Yeah.
So if you have a watch that's 50 years old in Europe, a lot of the collectors, they want to know everything about that watch. They want to know who had it, did it go through the war, all the provenance, and they really get into that, and that means something. And I got into that. They looped me up in that real quick, and I started looking around and purchasing a few cool pieces, and I thought to myself, this is fantastic. Is this in Australia? And so I came back to Australia, and me and my wife got a job here, a really good job, and so we moved back, and she said to me, "You're going to start up your vintage watch company." And I thought, you know what, there's a vintage watch company already. His name's Ronnie. He's a very good friend of mine. He's done a very good business. So I can't call it that, but I can do something along those lines, yes. So I started looking for properties to put a shop. And my wife knows once I've got something in my head, I have to do it.
Yeah.
And so I jumped into looking at shops above the Adelaide Arcade.
Yep.
So on the bottom of the Adelaide Arcade.
On the mezzanine level.
Correct.
Yeah.
Bottom floor was $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
Too much for a small business, because I used to pay, $6,000 where I was in Blue Chili days. Yeah. And then I came back and I thought, all right, upstairs. Let's do upstairs. What's that? Oh, that's $12,000. Big difference.
Yeah.
And
Can you
so also
describe it for the listeners who don't know what that arcade looks like.
Oh, well, it's a historic arcade. It's very much like the Sydney Strand Arcade. But it's
very nice. Beautiful. It's beautiful early late Victorian architecture.
Correct.
So it's you've got old stores down the top and on the top, and the mezzanine floor down onto the mall.
Correct.
I looked at that place. I've been in love with the architecture of that place ever since I was a small kid, and it's a beautiful space. And if they had car parks associated with each place, I'd be in tomorrow.
Heartbeat. Yeah. But the Region Arcade was very similar.
Yes,
but then they let it go.
Yeah,
unfortunately, it didn't keep up with the Adelaide Arcade, and they've done a fantastic job of keeping their province. So it looks good. So that was $12,000, and I thought, I'm going to do this.
So what year are we now?
Oh, gosh, this is 10 years ago.
10, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I've been with
just
Farron Price
after
10 years.
the global financial crisis.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Correct.
Just as we're getting into recovery mode.
Yeah, so funny you say that, because you are right. I remember that distinctly, because I was going to do that shop, and then where I am now, it's my business partner's Luke Davison, and he's got a father, Greg, they're wonderful people, good family, and Greg was retiring. And I don't know whether Greg sort of got a whiff of, this is what I wanted to do, because I knew them. I used to go in there. I used to love watches, look at them all the time, buy a few pieces here and there. And he came over to me one day. He said, "Don't worry about that shop." And his son then visited me, Luke, who's a good friend of mine now, and he said, "Yeah, don't worry about that shop. How about you come over and work for us? Dad's going to retire." And I spoke to my wife, and I reckon I accepted. We looked at the proposal, and I said, "Yep, this is good. I'm going to do this. Let's have a crack at this. This will give me a good chance to get in with some high-end brands such as Rolex, Omega, and the rest of them we had at the time, Breitling." So I took that, and I reckon after what you're saying, 6 months later was the global financial crisis. And my wife looked at me and she said, "Lucky you didn't start that business."
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So now we should get into what's the business, what's the history of the business, where you are now, because that's an amazing story in itself.
It is, yeah. So Luke's grandfather started. He didn't start the business. He bought the business because J. Farron Price.
Because that was back in '66. He bought that.
Correct, but they were franchised. There was lots of Farron Prices around. And Julian, who has Sydney, J. Farron Price, he's the son. But during, I can't remember, I think it was the recession times. It was a recession time, and a lot of them went broke. And Greg's father bought J. Farron Price. It was just a watchmaking business.
Right.
So there was no retail in it. And he had 3 watchmakers working there. And then Greg had the vision to, I think, turn it into a watchmaking business and a retail outlet. So he went out, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I'm doing the best I can here with the history of Farron Price, but he went out and then he started contacting Omega and some of the other brands. And then he contacted Rolex.
Right.
which was a big deal.
That's a big deal.
It was a big deal. And the story goes...
And you said they said Australia, and you said Australia. Do you mean Austria?
they still do. We say Adelaide, and they go where?
Yeah. Is that next to Sydney?
Still.
Yeah.
Now.
We all get that.
But
that's nice, though.
Yeah, well, we got lucky, I think, because there was a gentleman called Richard Delaza. Richard Delaza was the head of Rolex 10 years ago. Maybe more, sorry, not 10 years ago. He was the head of Rolex 15, 16 years ago. No, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Greg met him, and he used to live in Adelaide and had family in Adelaide. But he made it big time. He went out and he became Australia's general manager, and then he went out and he now is UK's general manager.
Right. Well, there's a link.
Sorry?
What a great link that is.
That's right. And we got lucky because when he came down to see Greg, he thought, this is hometown. This is where I used to live. If I put a Rolex shop here, I can get a tax deduction by coming back to see the family. And I think that's what happened. And it was pretty cool. And so they got that gig. And when they got Rolex, that changed everything for the shop. So, yeah, Luke had worked there all his life, ever since he finished school. And then when he came over to me and said, hey, come help me out, Dad's going to retire, I took that and jumped on board with that. And yeah.
What was that transition like? Because you talked about, when you were 19,
having my own business.
I don't want to work for someone else.
Yeah.
21, I'm on there. How did that go?
Do you know what's funny? You say at first it was a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
It was a struggle for both me and Luke.
Right.
Luke knew my personality because we'd known each other, and he made a comment to me. I reckon it was the first week in, and with Rolex, you are meant to break up all your displays when you get a new display. Mm-hmm. So if I get a new displays to put in the shop, the old ones are meant to be destroyed. Yep. You send destruction photos to Rolex, and then you get the go ahead to put the new ones in. That's how they work. So no one then can go and sell, because they're worth money, go sell the old visuals. And the first week in, I had to destroy the old visuals. And I thought, me being me, this would look fantastic in my vintage watch.
Yeah.
And Luke, I remember distinctly looking at me and going, make sure you destroy these, because we don't want them ending up in Michael Timson's watch store or something like that. And I thought, oh, you bugger, you know me too well.
Yeah. But that was just nice if you had them in your garage.
Exactly, yeah. But that comment made me think, and I thought to myself, okay, yes, we're friends, but there's some trust to be earned.
Yeah.
Because he thought Michael's in here for a short time.
Yeah.
Gather as much information and start to know everybody, and out he goes. And
so this was Greg.
This was Luke, the son.
Oh, this is Luke, the son.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Greg
so Luke knows you.
Luke knows me. Greg knows me, but Luke knows me very well. But Greg I only worked with for, I think, like 3 or 4 months, 5 months before he left.
Retired.
Yeah, before he retired. Yeah. And Luke showed me the reins pretty good. He showed me how everything was meant to be done, and he knew I knew how to run a company. So instead of being a boss at that time, he sort of took me under his wing, but he also said to me, you've got the skills already to do everything we need. So I'm going to give you full reign and trust. And that was about after a year. And that meant a lot to me. And I thought, you know what, if they're going to do that, then I'm in. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm going to run with this. And so I did. And when I let go of that, how long am I going to be here attitude, and thought, I'm going to give it everything, that changed everything for me in the company. Because all of a sudden customers started to stick and relate. Brand managers started to go, well, hang on a second, this guy he's serious about his job.
It's interesting. I left a position where the company I've got early days, there was a dark time, like in all companies. Sure. I'm on my second, third iteration. And I went to work for a friend's company for a 2-year period. And I thought, I've just been through the wars with the first 6 years of blood, sweat and tears to make this work. It didn't work. I'm going to go work for my friend's company. It's not doing well. I'm going to treat this like it's my business, and I'm going to be here passionately and do everything. I would work no less than 10 hours a day. Most often I was there for 12 hours a day and making that business my own. And that just changed my entire mindset. Because when I was in my 20s, it was, because at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, it's 5:01. I'm late. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I hated everything I did.
Yeah.
As soon as you make that change, That's a very powerful time.
It is, and people started because I got into what, because I'd traveled overseas, because I loved watches, because I knew a lot while I was over there, and while I was even at Blue Chili, there wasn't the internet so much to look up things at that time.
Yeah.
So if I was to buy something, or if I was to collect a piece, I would have to call up overseas. I'd have to call friends in Amsterdam or Rome and say, hey, I'll send email photos. What do you think of this? Is this all correct?
Yep.
I have to go buy books. I'd go to the library, or I'd go buy a book and do my research, because you can get caught out with watches pretty quickly. Yeah. And so I did all of that, and then coming into Fair and Price and knowing that the customers turned to me and went, wait a minute, this guy knows what he's talking about. And not to say that they didn't in the business before, but it brought a whole nother level, because before Luke and Greg used to ask me some questions.
Yeah.
And now that I'm there, that meant a lot to the clients. And you know, learning the respect and trust from the clients was a big thing. I had a client ring up who knew me. He was a bit drunk one night when we were out, and we got into a little bit of an argument. We're very close now, but he rang up Luke the next day and said,
did he go to Rostrova as well?
No, he didn't. He's a bit older than me, actually. But he rang up Luke and said, you know, I'm going to be a client forever. Michael's only going to be there 1 year.
Wow.
Yeah, and that hurt me. And I thought, wow, okay. And Luke told me, I said, this is what he said. And I said, okay, well, what do you want to do? And he goes, well, I've always got your back. And I went, yeah, okay, I've always got yours, and let's do this. Yeah. And that was another thing, you know.
That's a great employer.
You need that. Yeah. Oh, he's been a fantastic employee. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. And then the conversation started, you know, I need more help. You know, you're doing a really good job. What do you think about becoming, you know, taking over? And those conversations started happening. And we're in a transition now where there's, I can't probably say too much just yet, but it's going to be taken over completely, which is something I've worked towards for quite a long time, and the ownership of that company. But with that ownership of that company,
taken over by yourself?
Correct. Yeah. Right. But with that comes a lot more expenditure and a lot more growth that needs to happen with the business.
I feel like we've got a scoop here.
I know. I'm thinking
yeah, well, it is going to be a big thing.
You came to the castle as a trusted helper, and you know, you got to clean a bit and do stuff. And now you've got to be the king.
Now got to be the king. Oh, gosh, I hate that word. But yes.
I want to be the king. I have a chair.
yeah. Jester.
I think we'll keep going. That was like a very silly place.
But yeah, so there's...
How's that sitting with you? Are you nervous about it?
Yeah, I'm nervous. Excited? A little bit. No, I'm both, yeah. I mean, I'm nervous and excited.
This is a big historical thing too, because all of a sudden, here's this... So, J. Fran Price starts 1942. Guy leaves the war. Does this in Sydney, sets up all these stores. 66, the store that you're in is bought out by the Adelaide guys. So 66 to now, there's a big history. Second, there's a big history. You're about to
embark on a new...
Start the new chapter of a thing that's already had 2 iterations of really important history. So...
Are you listening to that, Rolex?
You're going to be the king.
Yeah, and I hope I do them justice.
Yeah,
to be honest, that's the part that scares me the most.
The feeling, everything you've said now, just says, "Well, this is just natural."
There's so much responsibility there, though. Like they're trusting you with
their brand,
their heritage.
Yeah. And we get a lot of pushback because we're not the same as Fair and Price in Sydney. Like we are a separate entity, and people say to us all the time, "Oh, you know, your business or your shop in Sydney, and it's not ours."
Yeah.
And so some of the brands say to us, "Oh, have you ever thought about changing the name or giving the name back?" And I thought,
I was just going to ask that.
Well, why? I mean, yes, the name has value, but it also has value to us. Like it is our company, you know, and it's Luke's original grandfather's company, and why would I change that? And it has a good name in South Australia.
Yeah, it would just set you back, surely. Like, it takes
that's what you
so
think.
long. It'd be like changing
you'd be
Twitter to X or something.
Exactly.
Everyone's like,
What's X?
You'd be a 10-year transitional phase where back in the 80s, there was a business called Copper Art, and they sold all sorts of cheap homewares.
Hopefully you're not comparing Copper Art to J. Farron Price.
So, it's an interesting parallel.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I use this quite often because they changed from Copper Art to Home Art. And so the brochures had come out to be, welcome to Copper Art and Home Art.
Yeah, right.
And then a year later, it'd be welcome to Home Art and Copper Art down the bottom. And they do this, and I always look at this parallel because it was a great example of a corporation who had a lucrative big business that worked quite well and had to transition from a big name change.
Yeah.
Still crappy products. And
you never buy them.
And they're dead now anyway, so I can say what I like. But you've got such heritage there. I mean, I'm just taking over. You've got a big challenge there if you do.
I've got a big challenge, yeah. And I think we're looking at keeping obviously the name. I'm not convinced.
Yeah,
that it should be changed.
What's the state of the current watch industry? What's it like?
That's a really good question.
I know you guys had like a big
boom,
like a big pump during COVID. Are we on the way down? What's happening?
So I distinctly remember buying watches, Rolexes at a discount for all my life. Okay, if I was to walk into a shop anywhere in the world, let's use Australia for example, and I wanted to buy a Rolex Submariner and the price was $7,000, I knew I was going to get that watch for $6,000 or $5,500. That was the way the economy was. That's just the market. Watches weren't crazy. There was no social media telling you have to have a Rolex before you can own a house, and this is the truth. And I thought, that's how it was always going to be. And watches, like most other commodities, always traded pre-owned cheaper than new.
Those days are gone.
Right. And so only 7 or 8 years ago, so just before COVID, watches started to get quite hard. And I had a meeting. We had a meeting with the Rolex general manager at the time, who's a fantastic guy called Patrick. He had dinner with us, and he said to us, no discounting. Stop discounting, which, we always kept it to a minimum anyway, because what these Rolexes are going to get hard to get. Your stock is going to be significantly harder to get. Now, we used to have 225 pieces on display at all times. So that's a lot of stock. Yeah. The days I could buy my first Rolex was the day I could go into the boutique and say, can I pick my own serial number? So they used to bring out 6 or 7 watches from the back, all the same model. And I used to pick 7s because I love 7.
Yeah.
And I used to walk out the shop with that.
Were they making the dealers purchase all that stock?
Yeah, you used to have backup in stock.
Oh, my God.
It was insane.
That's, wow.
So now we've gone the Ferrari route where we know we're going to sell 500 cars, so we're only going to make 450. And we're going to get 50 people hungry. Whatever the number is.
Well, they're the opposite. They make 1 million watches a year, and they probably got 12 million demand. And they told us that, and it started, and we didn't believe them at first. We're like, whatever. But it started to happen pretty quick within a year.
What year was that they kicked that off?
What are we now? 2025. Count back 8 years.
Okay.
Like 27.
So before that,
16.
Rolex didn't do that.
Yeah.
No. And so we had to start learning very quickly how to manage our stock.
And expectations too of clients, because it was show me all your watches.
Well, there's a model called the Rolex Daytona. I don't know if you guys know that.
I know
model.
the watch.
Right. So that's always been a hard watch to get. Okay. 2017 Basel World comes out, which is where they release all their new watches. It's called Watches and Wonders now. 2017 Basel World comes out, and they release a new Daytona, still Daytona.
Let's circle back to that. I want to find out more about that show as well.
Right. So that watch comes into our stock. Now, that watch was hard to get, but not that bad. Good customer walks in, says, I want a still Daytona. Oh, of course. It's $16,000 at the time. We sold it straight away. Little did we know, and our hand wasn't on the pulse right then, that watch was worth $20,000 straight away as soon as he walked out the shop. Now, I don't even know if he knew.
So you're getting some flippers in?
We've controlled that really well, but we had flippers.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely. Everyone has all over the world.
Yep.
it's not so much the flippers, because the flippers, you can't blame them. I get upset when people say, "Oh, you know, those bloody flippers." If I could buy something and make $10,000 straight away, you'd be stupid to say no. Let's be realistic.
Yeah. And flippers are going to drive up the value of
So Rolex. Everybody loves that. You know, I don't want to say that Rolex love that, because they don't. That we've had the phone call many times from them about, well, not many times, but a couple of times where they said, "Hey, this guy here is flipping his watch. Can you get that under control?" And we have. So they are onto it.
What does that mean?
The Rolex police.
You just blacklist that person?
Yeah, pretty much. So we don't get enough allocation not to know who you are.
Yeah.
If you're in New York or you're in UK or something like that, London, it's pretty hard to control that. If they're getting, 1,500 watches a year, it is a bit more difficult. But when you're getting such a small allocation like us in South Australia, they're silly to think that, still Daytona is going to end up on the market and we're not going to know about it. Like we learn within a day that you're doing that. And Rolex are onto that, and they call us and they say, "Hey, this is happening," and we already know usually, and we make that call. Now, the call is, and the rules are, normally within a year. Okay? I had a really good client of mine, and I mean really good client. He bought many watches, and he had about 12 Rolexes, and he'd owned them for about 4 years, and they all ended up on eBay at a profit. And this is a turning point for me as well. I've got a lot of turning points in my life. This was a turning point for me. And before that, I'd rang everybody and said, "Hey guys, what are you doing? Like, come on, just bring the watch back. We'll give you money back. We'll give it to somebody who really wants it." Yeah. Well, everybody knows Farron Price is pretty much straight down the line like that. But I rang this guy and I said, "Mate, I've known you for such a long time. You're such a good guy. Why?" I got a phone call from Rolex and all your watches are on eBay. And he said to me, and I know for a fact, he said to me, "My wife's dying of cancer, Michael.
Right.
And are you going to pay for the medical bills?"
Wow. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I didn't know what to say. I broke down and cried.
I bet.
Because I knew his wife and she was a lovely lady and I knew she was sick. And I thought to myself, man, how egotistical and selfish of me to make that phone call. Who do I think I am?
Yeah.
If that guy wants to walk out this shop and he wants to throw them in the rubbish bin, or he wants to go outside and give it to a friend, or he wants to sell it, that's his business. That's not my business. And you know what? I quickly learned a lesson, and I looked up on the ACCC and I spoke to the ACCC, and they said to me, "You can't tell that person what to do with that watch.
No.
You can regulate it. You can not sell it to them. You're allowed to not sell it to them. But once they own that, that is their property." And so I think certain companies, and this is not just that particular company, but other companies that try and control that have to be careful, because you don't know that person's story. And I think everybody misses that. Everybody says, "Oh, that flipper." Yeah, there's flippers out there.
If that story, and you pushed it harder and under different circumstances, that friend of yours who bought the watches, your client, took that to the media, that could all of a sudden turn into an international story, which could really damage a brand. So it's a very, very difficult, very sensitive situation.
Yeah, the dancing.
Yeah, and Rolex were fantastic. I remember having a conversation with them after that, and they put that to bed very quickly and said, not apologetic. There's no need to apologize about it, but they let it go very quick and said, "Yep, that's not the one you need to worry about." So, which was really, I respected that.
That's good.
Yeah, but we've had some occasions, where people have just gone, "I lost my job. I made a silly decision."
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about $500 pieces. We're talking about 20, 30, 100, 50, 200,000. That's a lot of money. And people change their minds.
Yeah, of course.
And I've never been, I like to change my cars. I buy cars. I like to change my watches sometimes too. And so I empathize with that. And I don't really hold anybody. I think if you do it within the next day, the next week, or 12 months.
That's a flipper.
Yeah. And you know what? Some of them that want to do it, they will call us and say, "Look, Mike, don't love this piece anymore. Do you want it, or do you want to give it to somebody else? Or can you help me do it, so it's not doesn't upset anybody?"
Yeah.
And, I respect that.
That's great.
And I think that's why Rolex introduced certified pre-owned.
Right.
I was on the website the other day and I saw the certified pre-owned.
Yeah. It's a great idea, great concept.
Porsche do it.
Yep.
Jaguar do it. All the big luxury brands do it. And it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do certified pre-owned garages. Or maybe, but you could with your speakers, though. You could do that with speakers.
Yeah, we have past masters.
Yeah.
Why do they hold value so well, watches?
They never used to.
Yeah.
I get people coming in all the time saying to me, "Oh, I just want a great investment." And I say, well, go see a financial advisor and go buy a piece of property because you're in the wrong shop. But if you want to watch, I can help you with that. So they hold their value. I mean, gold holds its value better. There's other commodities. I think that hold it. You know, go buy property, like I said, or there's certain vintage cars that do really well. Porsche is doing really well at the moment. Do I think watches hold their value? There's really only 3 brands. There's Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe, and Rolex.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They're the brands that hold their value. And do they hold their value on all their models? No, only a very small percentage.
I mean, Oyster Perpetual, Rolex,
right? They're always going to be good.
And
they're original.
And the Submariner.
The Submariner, the Daytona, the GMT.
We all want, and maybe the Omega as well, the Bond watches, all the watches that James Bond wore.
Correct.
It's how much am I going to make? And I can see, I was looking at secondhand Submariners leading up to our interview today. And, and I remember looking at secondhand Submariners 20 years ago and thinking, wow, $1,800, but the new one's $5,500. That's what I'm going to get. But I'll wait until I've just got a little bit more, get these other things. Now I'm looking at them and I'm thinking 8,000 is where they start. And I'm seeing I saw one recently and all the face had worn off and there were only a few digits left on the bottom and it was in a bad way. And it said, good condition for its age. I thought, no, it's not.
It's horrible.
And it's $8,000. So, yeah.
I've got a vintage 5512, so 1961.
Yep.
The guy wore it through the war. He paid. So back in the days, what they used to do was they used to hand out Rolexes to all the troops.
Yep.
And they could purchase that with one paycheck. Mm-hmm. And that was always their ticket home. So anywhere in the world, if they needed to get home, they could sell it for an airfare. That was the whole point of it.
Right.
And that cost him $183.
Yeah, right. Hence the NATO strap.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, that's a 5514 mil sub. Yeah, so that's beautiful. I mean, those watches there. I got a client of mine. It's a good story. I got a client of mine who had 2, British military. Mm-hmm. And when the first coloured television came out, he swapped it for that watch. That coloured TV wouldn't be worth $5 these days, but that watch is a $500,000 watch, right?
Yeah, right. Wow.
Yeah. And he still tells the stories. Like 88 years old, he still tells the story when he comes in. Oh, that one, I'm missing that one.
Yeah. But, I got that coloured television.
Yeah, that's right. I've upgraded that 15 times.
So I remember watching the match on that, the big match. What a great weekend that was.
What's the percentage of how do your customers choose between the ones you wear and the ones that you throw in the safe?
The safe queens. I've got customers that throw all of them in the safe. It's horrible. This is the thing with Porsche at the moment. They're selling their GT3 RSs, I hear, to younger guys now so that they track them and drive them as opposed to the older guys who are just leaving them in the garages. Yeah. And I quite like that concept.
But I've got customers who've got 50 cars.
Yeah.
And they're lucky if they're putting 500 kilometres a car a year on each car.
Which is not good for it, really.
No, it needs to, because all of the fluids need to move around to keep everything lubricated, all the engines and the seals and what have you. And I have mixed feelings about the whole thing, but I love my clients who've got 50 cars. I've got a client in Cyprus at the moment with 120 cars.
Oh, wow.
I'm doing a huge
you're
project.
Employing people to drive them for you.
You'd have to. So are we employing people? Now, so self-regulating watches,
automatics,
automatics, you put it in your box with the little rocking motion, so it does the watch winding. If we could get the same thing for cars,
we just start
auto start, run it for 5 minutes, get it on the dyno.
You need to design
I'm going to do that. I need some help. But we need to put a watch in there too, so we'll do it between us.
Well, the people we were staying with in Amsterdam, they actually had young guys coming because he had a beautiful car collection downstairs, and I'll show you the photo. New Ferraris that had never been driven and things like that, and he had young guys coming in doing that, cleaning them, washing them weekly, starting them, driving them. Yeah,
I'm thinking it is. It's a 250 GT California, and I've just parked it in the car park. My name is Ferris Bueller, and all of a sudden, there's 150 miles more on this than there should be. Yeah, I'm
run it backwards.
He would have had this is no joke. He would have had $10 million worth of cars, and I said to him, I remember walking in there, I said, "Which one's your favorite?" And he goes, "The one right at the back," and I went, "That's a Mini," and he goes, "But it was Mr.
I like him already,
but it was Mr. Cooper's."
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I went, "Oh, so you got some connections."
Yeah, you hear those stories a lot. I had
Yeah.
a similar client, and I said, "What's your favorite? What are you going to keep?" He said, "My Sahara, my Land Cruiser."
Yeah.
That's what he loves.
That's my favorite car.
And he's probably a client of yours. He's got a really nice watch collection too.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, and this line of story could just go on and on and on.
It could,
and we
yeah.
won't be
I
able to
could
finish
talk
till
about
tonight. So we should probably go into the business.
That's all right. So why are they
Holding
safe queens?
Yeah. Sorry.
Why aren't they wearing them?
Yeah. They're safe queens because they're holding value.
Okay.
So they're usually putting away pieces that retaining a high strength in their value. They don't want to scratch them. There's this new thing now where they're RX8, I think they're called. They're stickers. So they're like you can wrap a car, you can wrap a watch.
Oh, vinyl wrap your watch.
Yeah, they're pretty much, $350 you can vinyl wrap your watch. I hate it. To me, and I tell people that go and do this, I say to them, it tells me you can't afford your watch.
Here's a condom.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is the prophylactic special.
Yeah.
It's correct in 42 time zones twice a day.
But it's ridiculous.
Can't mind it though,
It's
because it says the
Yeah, I mean,
Provo skin.
there's no fun in that. I mean, if you've got the money to buy it, surely it's...
Well, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, enjoy
But
it.
do you know what? Maybe I'm the silly one because I go and wear them. Yeah. And then they're obviously worth a little bit less if they ever need to sell it. But this guy's
But what does it perfect you to wear it?
Well, this
Isn't that why you get it?
Well, this is a story I tell everybody. I've got young kids that come in. I had one young lad last year come in. I'll never forget. He had a beautiful solid gold GMT master. That was his grandfather's.
Yeah.
I can't remember the reference number off my head, but it was a Jubilee bracelet, solid gold GMT from the 80s. And I said, "Oh, this is unbelievable condition, mate. Like, this is phenomenal." He left it in a drawer for how long? 20 years, 30 years? Okay. Can you tell me a story about your grandfather wearing this watch? No. I never saw him wear the watch.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the bit that kills me.
It's the story. It's the heritage.
100%. See, I remember my dad wore his Rolex everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. I remember him crayfishing with his mates and just dunking his hands into that, or cleaning the toner cartridge and going inside and washing it off. As a kid, I remember that. I looked at him and went,
story in the marks. It's how do you get that scratch? Well, there was a client of mine years ago had a 1928 Studebaker. Brought it in to have it restored. There was a hole in the radiator shroud. He said, "Okay, well, we can fix it." I said, "Don't touch that." "What do you mean?" My grandfather's brother got so frustrated with the car when it broke down, he shot it with a 303, and that's the hole. And so all of a sudden, the car's got a story. And I thought, we can't even rechrome it because it will destroy the patina of that story.
That's excellent.
Sterility of a heritage item it's half the story.
I agree. Yeah.
I have that with my signet ring. Like it's pretty much alfoil now. I mean, this is over 100 years old. It's worth 5 cents, but it
means everything.
Absolutely. If I lost that,
Yeah. Well, if you lost that, it means your fingers cut off because it looks like it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think it is. It's been on this since I was 12 years old, so it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Wow, 12 years. That was a long time ago. Wow, you must have got that when you were new.
No, I got it when I was 12.
But yeah, that's why I think they do it.
Yeah.
That's why I think they safe queen them. Yeah. It's just value
Mm.
or rarity.
What about safety? I know, overseas, it's a big thing. Is it a thing here?
That's a good question. It's getting worse apparently in Melbourne and Sydney and stuff.
That's a shame.
Why? Is it just opportunism and lack of
the economy,
social
concern?
Maybe.
And I think it's more widely known.
Okay.
Like I could wear a gold Submariner 10 years ago and nobody would know what it is. Like nobody would care or think otherwise. Most people thought I was an idiot for wearing a Rolex. They really did. Like I remember my friends always like, this guy with his Rolex, who cares? It's just a watch. But now they're all coming to me going, "Mike, I want to buy my first Rolex." I'm like, "You're 20 years too late, mate." Like, but that's how it is. And so I think with the social media and with education, or quick education, I call it, people know what it is. And the gangs out there and things like that, they watch all these rap videos and they watch these TV shows and they see all this and they see the value and they think it's an easy target. And you do have to be careful, I think, anywhere in the world, including here. But the best way to store it, people insure their watches. No disrespect to anybody who does that, but I think you're wasting your money. Right. I think the insurance companies are going to cause you a lot more hassle than what it's worth. I think if you can, I don't think they do bank safes, bank storages anymore, where you can store in a bank.
You can get safety deposit boxes.
You can still do that
in various places. They're not a lot because banks are shifting away from cash. So they're anything with any liability. They just want to have numbers in the cloud somewhere, and that's about it.
Okay.
But there are definitely still gold storage, for instance. You can the gold dealers here in Australia. They store your gold. So
do they?
They've got. I'm sure actually.
That's a good idea.
It's going to be the J. Farron Price
watch
storage facility. So we will maintain your watches in our vaults.
I like this idea.
And
I might have two partners right here.
We will service the watch and wind it. So once every period of time, your watch investment, and then you can make an appointment to come and look at your watch, or we will have a concierge service and bring the whole collection to you
with an arm guard.
And you can have your watch collection or whatever you want when you want it.
I like that idea.
All of a sudden, okay, 10%.
10%. I like it a lot.
So why are those three brands the collectible ones? I mean, you've got you didn't mention, my mate the other day, he was wearing $500,000 Richard Mille or Ricard Mille or whatever it is.
Richard
Mille,
it
was because I was at the pub and I went, is that what I think it is?
Yeah, that's a serious watch.
Yeah, that's not a Citizen.
No, and why are they not holding the value like those other?
The Richard Milles are
right.
So there's three brands they say is horology. So you've got Audemars Piguet, Vacheron Constantin, Patek Philippe.
Yeah.
I like to add four. People have always said three. I say four. There's a brand called A. Lange & Son from Germany. It is my favorite brand in the world. Yeah. I think it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Beautiful watches.
Beautiful watches, yeah.
But Longines as well. I mean, Longines are beautiful watches. And I think, so when you talk about investment watches, that there are three that have, I presume you mean that they have the greatest breadth of investment value, because all watch brands will have some models which are going to be relatively good investments.
Well, the whole horology part is that they're family owned still.
Okay, right.
So, Audemars Piguet was family owned. Patek Philippe, family owned by Mr. Stern. Cartier Richemont, so they're not family owned anymore.
Okay. I saw you show about watch on your podcast last week. It was a tank watch.
With Rebecca Morse.
That was so cool.
She's fantastic.
But I love the watch in particular, because he saw, it was during the war, right? When he designed it. He's looking out the window.
Yeah, Mr. Louis Cartier.
Tank going past. So it's a plan view of a tank.
Yeah, but it's the same as the AP. So if you look at Audemars Piguet, the Royal Oak, Gerald Gent designed that, and he drew it on a napkin. It was meant to replicate the window of a submarine.
Right.
And so these little things, like the Nautilus for Patek, these are all designed by Gerald Genter. And Gerald Genter, I mean, his designs didn't become famous until, only 10 years ago or so, where they just went silly. I mean, he designed the engineer for IWC, and the engineer we could never sell.
Tell me about U-Bolt, because that was an interesting watch when it came out.
Which one is it?
U-Bolt, which is a German
U-Boat?
watch. U-Boat, yes.
Yeah, U-Boat, yep.
Not U-Bolt. U-Boat was a great looking watch, very interesting. It was very classically inspired on the
Italians,
on the that Submariner look from during that World War II.
I don't know too much about U-Boat. I know that they were an Italian brand. I know a brand from Italy quite well called Panerai.
Yeah.
Do you know much about them?
No.
They're fantastic. They were.
The designs look incredible.
So they actually started this concept where. So I don't know if you know much, but there's always this talk around the industry where if you want a special Rolex or you want a special Patek, you need to buy some of the lesser brands to be able to have the watch that you want. Right. So you got to have a reputation, a relationship.
To get the credibility as a collector.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Panerai started that. And not many people know this. They really did. So they were making very limited productions of certain models and they were commanding premium. And this was this is 15 years ago before anybody knew what was going on in the watch industry. Yeah. They were made for Italian divers in the 1950s.
Yeah.
And they weren't even for sale. They used to just give them to the divers. They had a special instrument that nobody else had. It helped them see the time underwater at deep depths.
That was the big thing when you're a kid, your watch, you can put it, it was like, how many meters down can it go? You could only swim 2 meters down. It didn't matter.
So. Mine went all the way to the bottom of the pool. Didn't work afterwards. And it was waterproof because every time I picked it up, not one single drop of water would come out. It all stayed in there. Oh, that's terrible. I know. Mind you, it was terrible because it was digital. Bremont. The Bremont brothers.
Awesome. Yeah.
What an incredible, interesting story. So
watches for kings and queens.
Came back. They said, right, we're going to reinvigorate the British watch industry.
Look, I think they all have a story like this.
Yeah.
Bremont's a fantastic brand. And you know what? They patented it and made a lot of the movements and parts for movements that all the watches use today.
Yeah.
So they're wonderful.
Wow.
Do they retain value? No.
Yeah, well, they make a lot of watches. I think they make too many because they make them for all the squadrons, the UK Air squadrons. They make them for different military regiments.
Correct.
But you can buy a watch now. They made one watch with a little piece of oak from what was the ship?
I do know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, they put a little piece of oak from the British the sailing ship, the last ship that was in the British fleet, the sailing ship.
Oh wow.
It's at Portsmouth.
And they add that to the watch, yeah.
And the Spitfire, they also have a watch with a piece, the
whole plane in there.
There's a little propeller in the back, which has the whole plane in it. They shrunk it in their anti-gravity shrinking machine. And it's got a propeller made from some watch. So there's some really great stories of some beautiful watches that the PR guys have thought, watches, wow, we can add some zeros by creating a story for these watches.
Well, look at the moon watch.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's one I wanted.
I mean, can you imagine if we found out that we didn't go to the moon?
Don't you dare.
I'm a big non-moon guy, sorry.
Don't you dare.
They always told me off when they see me.
This guy was born on the moon. Yeah. He gets cheese delivered.
Do you love
weekly.
it, do you? You're a moon guy.
Oh, big space nerd.
Really?
Big time space nerd.
Oh, I'd love to hear more about this.
Yeah, I'm into it.
Maybe I've watched too much of
Too many conspiracy theories.
Yeah. I think there's some really cool stuff out there. I want to know, and this is way off track, but it's part of this story. Why haven't the various national India and China have launched their satellites to go around the moon and have a look and see what's going on? China have just been there recently.
Yes, they have.
Why didn't they fly over and say, this is where they said they landed, but we can't see any flags or anything, so here's the proof.
Because they brought back a wheel of cheese. Really? Yeah, they did. Yeah. So
back to the story.
Back to watches.
Yeah.
I'm guessing counterfeits big problem in your industry?
It's great for me. I bought my first Rolex. It was 25
in Bangkok. We get heaps of people come in. It's at least one a week coming in just saying, hey, the saddest stories are the ones that come in and say, hey, granddad left me this or dad left me this. And you got to go, oh, sorry, it's not real. And they went, and their faces, it's some of the ones that are pretty funny. They go, oh, yeah, I knew he was in Thailand or whatever else he was up to. But most of them are upset. And it's sad because they think they left them something of value and they haven't. And then you got to tell them, hey, guys, just keep in mind you can't sell it because it's illegal to sell it here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Here's a complete numpty question. Will there ever be a day where a digital watch is collectible?
The first iWatch?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't, digital watch. Do you mean digital as in like new digital or digital that in like
early
vintage?
LCD
Yeah, well, they
screen.
are. I mean, some of the Mega stuff from the 80s are fantastic.
And you look at Roger Moore's, the first digital watch in James Bond film was won by Roger Moore.
Yeah.
That watch, I think that was that an Amiga?
He wore a Rolex. No, sorry, Ian Fleming wore the Rolex, and then it was an Amiga.
Yeah, so it's Roger Moore. So that first digital watch, my parents bought me a copy of that watch, and I've still got it. And I tried to find my watches today to bring in, and I thought, don't be a nerd, but maybe I should have done. But anyway, and that they go for some money.
Oh, they go for big money. Yeah, of course. If you've got,
anything that's associated with a cultural hero is going to do it. So it's probably not the actual watch itself. So I don't think your Casio calculator watch from 1982 is probably going to be worth much more than you paid for it. But
what's his name? I think Neil Armstrong's watch just went up for sale.
Yeah.
At auction. 5 million? I think I went for 5 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah.
Providence, because the guy that wore it. When he went
because
to the
when I
moon,
bid, I only got to 4.5 million.
when he went to the moon.
And he went to the moon,
he
apparently.
actually went to the moon.
I mean, he kept the biggest secret for 53 years, but anyway.
Tell us about the watch show. We'll circle back to
Watches
that.
and Wonders?
Yeah. What's that like?
Baselworld was better.
Okay.
Baselworld was unbelievable. That was the early one.
Yeah.
Breitling used to have this show. So you go to Switzerland. So if everyone who doesn't know, you fly over to Switzerland for a week, and you go to a big fair, and they build, all the companies spend $2 to $3 million building these fantastic shows with offices and you go there, and for retailers, we go there, we get the first to see the new products, and then we get to sort of not so much back in the day it was place an order, but now it's just a viewing and sort of this is what you're going to get. Yeah. But back then it was all of that, and so Baselworld, I remember going, and Breitling, who we had for 17 years, they threw Breitling parties. And I remember everybody talking about this, saying, Michael, you've got to go to a Breitling party. And I said to Luke, mate, we've got to go to a Breitling party. He goes, yeah, you do. All right. So we'll get some tickets somehow and we'll go. There were a gold coin, right? And we got the coin that was given to us, and we were very excited. Went home, we showered, we got changed, and rocked up to this building, and they collected you on this bus, and you didn't know where you were going. It was pitch black, and they bring you to this shipping container. And I thought, I'm in another country. I got no idea where I'm going. I'm in a bus, and we get off, we get into this shipping container, and it's 3 shipping containers on top of each other with cutouts, so stairs. So 3 different levels, 3 different worlds. The first one was Thailand. This shipping container mimicked Thailand to a T. Water. I mean, I've got to send you some of these photos,
8 foot
mate.
by 8 foot by 20 foot, and you've crammed in Thailand.
Huge. Though, sorry, hangers, like airplane hangers.
I thought you said shipping
Sorry,
container.
not shipping containers. I apologise. No. Sorry.
I thought everyone
hangers.
just bunch up the back.
Yeah. No, my bad.
Sardines move to the left corner.
Yeah.
Sorry,
That's what I said a lot.
we're going to jump on you. Sorry.
Yeah, we are.
No, but these things were massive, absolutely massive, right? And so we get in there, and I remember going through this place, going, "Oh, this is unbelievable." And I looked to the left, and they had this stall, right? And it was all fake Rolexes, as a joke to Rolex. And I thought, wow, you buggers, yeah. And then you got up to the next level, and they had all these dancers.
Cheeky.
Now, the watch industry has changed so much that this doesn't happen anymore. Right. So now we've got what they call Watches and Wonders. So all the big guys pulled out of Basel, Rolex, Patek.
Does that mean that the fun novelty factor, has it become too serious then?
Here
are vouchers.
I'm going to get shot for saying this.
Silliness.
Yeah,
the only
none.
ones that good stuff.
Yeah, that's
all
it.
it is.
Yeah. We're professionals now. We wear ties. And we're Swiss. But
so no more Breitling
No.
saying, have a look at all these cheap Rolex.
What else are they doing in these big hangers?
Yeah, so they had...
number 2.
Yeah.
They had strippers. They had...
what, paint strippers?
No, mate. They had the best strippers. They also had... To make it even more authentic, they had ladyboys walking around everywhere.
Wow.
It was...
What year was that? Less than 10 years ago.
No, 2015.
Not that long ago.
Yeah, it was 2015.
Wow, the world's changed. Hasn't it?
Interesting, the transition from we're relaxed, we're all going to have fun, and we're not going to be too apologetic to, no, we're so uptight, we can't do anything because we don't want to offend anyone.
Well, this is why I think they got this way, because they started to cause a lot of problems. I mean, so there's a company called Omega and all those blank paint and all that they're owned by the Swatch Group.
Yeah.
Swatch Group, one of my favorite companies.
Right.
Because they used to be called the Scotch Group.
Okay. Brilliant.
They were fun, mate.
Yeah.
They used to have you on fishing charters, and they used to say to us,
no wonder you're in the watch industry.
Pick a watch. Which one do you want? And we used to go, well, that gold Planet Ocean looks fantastic. Or that gold Seamaster, I'll take that one. And they used to give it to you in the box as a gift. And
so Swatch owned Breitling?
No, Breitling owned, they were family owned, and they sold out about 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. The only family-owned one I know of now is Patek and AP. I'm pretty sure they're the only. And then you got your small ones like Moser and things like that. They're still owned by individuals. But just quickly on the back to the question of, hard to get. You think about this for a minute. Rolex make 1 million watches a year, so they say, and you can't get one. They're quite hard to get. Now you go to Patek at 35,000 watches a year, AP at 25,000 watches, and Langer at 15,000 watches. Of course you're not going to get them. They're just, people walk in and say, "Oh, I want a watch." Well, so does everybody else.
Yeah.
And they're not making enough. And they're not going to compromise on quality.
Yeah.
That's it. You're buying this watch because it's quality. I don't think you can put a price on that just because you want it and you want it now and everybody else wants it. And why should they?
Ferrari did, I'll go back to Ferrari. They did the same thing. If you want to buy a second-hand Ferrari, a vintage Ferrari that they own, especially Formula One or Formula One components, you need to be a serious collector. There's about one or two here in our state that are have the credentials to be on the list to be able to purchase at whatever numbers they put on a thing. Here's the thing where you're now qualified to spend all this money to buy this thing that cost us
$1 million.
Yeah, and you can buy it for $1 million plus. It drives up the passion, and it's a very good PR. And I go back to with John Farren Price in the 40s when he was a PR genius, and I was
he was, yeah, you're right.
And he strapped one of his watches to the keel of I think it was America's Cup keel, ran the race, took the watch off at the end of the race and said, "Oh, our watch is still working. Look at that. Not a drop of water comes out and you can wear this and everything."
You got that from Rolex.
You get lobsters and everything. So it was a Rolex, was it?
Well, Rolex did that. That was the whole thing that they sort of started to do, with the Trieste and stuff, where they start to strap watches on and go down to the Mariana Trench and bring it back up.
Yeah,
or
the bottom of that.
Yeah, they went all the way down. They strapped it on. If you could look up some of the videos, bring them up later because they're fantastic.
Yeah.
The watch the glass is that big.
They have to be.
Yeah, well, the pressure.
Yeah,
but they're still ticking.
Yeah,
back
insane.
then.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't realize with those mini subs, if you go
get a
down
mini
there,
sub, get a speaker, see if you can.
If you get a leak in the bottom of the Marinara Trench, it's not like, oh, there's water coming in. It's literally a water jet cutter, and it would take your head off.
Yeah.
Wow.
The PSI is so high,
and that's only if you're aware in that few seconds before it just goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, James Cameron did it with the deep sea. Yeah. Did you ever see that?
Yes.
He went down in the Marinara Trench.
It was built in Sydney.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, incredible.
And Rolex they made a watch called the Challenger Deep.
Yeah, right.
And they strapped that on and they went all the way down and it was still ticking.
Yeah, wow. That won an Australian Design Award. That's
fantastic.
That was with Brandon Gian. I think Gian, sorry. Yep. That was Brandon I think he was telling us that story a couple of months ago.
Yes,
a month ago,
I did not before.
That episode's only just recently out.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool.
Cool stuff. Watches are so cool. Can I ask Philippe Patek?
Patek Philippe?
Patek Philippe. That's okay. So
dyslexic.
Who?
Everybody does it that way.
Les who? That was the other brand that I really loved because growing up loving classic cars, they were in all the classic car magazines. The top in classic, it was the back page. And you get through and you read about the adverts for all of these things and all of a sudden this magnificent watch, gold case, typically sort of 35, 37 mils, smaller size, beautiful tan leather watch strap, and it had a moon gauge, it had all these things. It had probably 5 or 6 complications.
Well, they're known for that.
And just glorious watches.
You tell me a company that has one slogan and it's lasted, I think, 60 years, one slogan. And the slogan is, you never own a Patek, you merely look after it for the next generation.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, if that doesn't give you goosebumps, for me, that sold the brand. I just went, so this is going to outlive me and I'm going to give this to my son.
Do you have one?
I do have a Patek.
I know someone who's got one. I'm very excited.
That was an achievement for me,
Yeah. Beautiful watches.
But, again, I bought that in Florence years ago and they begged me to buy it. They gave me 30% discount on a watch that you can't even buy these days without 6 figures.
Goodness.
And they gave me a jacket, they gave me a tie, they gave me a hat. Please, Michael.
And a holiday in Thailand.
Pretty much. Yeah. Just to have it. And so that's how it's changed. But they are a fantastic brand. They're one of my favorite brands. They hold themselves, I think, on a whole nother level to everybody else.
So what is it? So you can only have one watch. What is it?
Oh, gosh.
Tick, 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 tick.
It's got to be a Lang & Son.
Wow.
For me.
Okay.
Yeah. And
That's
it's probably going to be a
three.
Datograph.
Right.
Gold Datograph.
Why is that? Why?
I think that it's a piece that is underrated by the watch industry. And if you know, you know. And if you don't, you don't. I kind of like that. And I think if you ever turn over an A. Lang & Son, have a look at the movement. It is like a small city.
Yeah,
that's how beautiful it is. You know, you got watches that, you know, other brands that just work and work. They're workhorses. That's what they're meant to do. They're built for that. But that Lang is handcrafted, hand engraved, and it's just a piece of art. And I love that about them. And I like that they're German. I think the Swiss make fantastic watches like Patek, but I think the Germans do an equally good job. And I think they get, because of the war and things that happen, I don't think they get enough publicity in that area.
What do you think of those? Like, some of those watches have gone crazy. Like, you know, they're absolutely massive. They've got car engines in them, or they've got.
Oh, you mean like a
planets?
And they're using tourbillon a lot. Yeah. The phrase tourbillon.
Yeah, but like more of like the art pieces. You know, they're huge, and they've got, you know, like they might have planets moving.
Sure. That's like Jacob and Co stuff.
Yeah. What do you think of that?
That's becoming a little bit more popular than what it's ever been. What I think of it, I don't like it. It's not my style. I appreciate what they're doing with it. It's a bit gimmicky for me. I'm still a lot based. I like heritage pieces. I like things that have stories. And I think the brands like Patek, Langer, and think they have stories. They have history. Not to say Jacob doesn't, but they're a bit too much for me.
Bit too much.
It's designed for. It looks like they're almost a PR product.
Correct.
To sell all the other stuff. Almost a loss leader. You know, each watch costs us $1 million to make.
Couture or something for the fashion industry. Is it a similar type of thing?
I don't know. I think he's just branching out and trying to do his own thing. Okay. No one else is doing it. Like, I mean, Corum did it. You know, they did some funny stuff, but it's gimmicky. And some people like that and others don't. I'm on the side that doesn't.
But is it one man with a dream who's passionate about this dream to make these these multiple complication watches, or is it a corporation saying you'll do this because when we do this you can generate more sales and make? Yeah, well, you look at the tourbillon.
It's a business thing? Yeah, I think it's half. I think it's passion, but it's also generated by money.
Yeah,
I mean, if you look at some of the brands that are making tourbillons, I mean, a tourbillon is a fantastic watch. I mean, if you know what a tourbillon is, especially a gyro tourbillon, where it's keeping perfect time 360 degrees.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, the manufacturing that goes into that piece. Yeah. Good luck servicing it because it's $10,000 and going to be away for 12 months.
Wow.
You know, it's not like servicing.
Full disassembly. Yeah.
And that's only like, you know, one or two watchmakers.
It's very much like the Aston Martin Valkyrie.
Exactly
which
right.
Which is the first service. And I was talking to an owner in the UK.
We've got a guy that's got one
18 months ago. I know. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was talking to another owner. And he said, well, first services, am I right? I can't remember, and I will be corrected, but it's around about 500,000 for the first service. And you've got to do that at a fairly low mileage. But it's, if we're only looking at, as soon as we start thinking it's not worth the money, then we stop making incredible things. And if that has always been the thing, would Da Vinci have painted the Mona Lisa? Would Michelangelo have painted the Sistine Chapel? If it was all about, well, how are we going to get a return on all of this? I'm going to paint this big ceiling with all this scaffold. It's got a saw neck. I do all this stuff. Who's going to come here and have a look at it?
Yeah, I agree.
And it was that, well, I'm not going to do it. And it would have been painted white. And
it's Michelangelo West Country Pond.
I do believe he is. Yeah. I do believe he is. And so's his cousin.
Never knew that.
From south of Southie. Actually, I agree with you. I think
we have to just throw all the money and say, if you've got a vision, you've got a dream, and you are a creative designer, you must make this stuff. We have to have it. What is the world worth if it is all? Because if we go the full extent of that extension where this stuff isn't worth, we'd all be wearing beige tracksuits.
Well, it's an understanding that what they're creating is art.
Yeah.
You know, we in our game, we always talk about albums. You know, we treat those as art.
Yeah.
Because they're so often just thrown away. Like very rarely do you get to hear what the artist intended. Especially in this day and age with, two-dimensional, chuck it on your phone.
So are they worth a bit of money, like some of the old records? If
The
they're
vinyl?
yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What would you say, like is it like an old Beatles, for instance? Is that worth a bit of money? Or
I can't give you prices. I'm not right into the vinyl thing, but many thousands.
Yeah?
For different different pressings. I mean, the thing that blew me away, they're very much like wine, the classic collectible vinyls.
That's a good idea.
In that it's because there's a bit of black art to it, as there is with wine. Like, I mean, when they're cutting the record, they're actually introducing distortion at the same time. So there's a guy on there to stop counteracting the resonance of the cutting needle. So they're introducing a distortion to stop that, and it's a completely man-made, manual analog process. And it's an incredible thing. So like I've heard records like one of the best vinyl recordings I ever heard. We had Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Oh yeah,
and the opening there with the birds and it's like we had it one time, and it was a specifically built room. It was an auditorium just for high-end hi-fi. We had a system there and we hooked it up. It was ridiculous turntables, $100,000, $20,000 needle. It was ridiculous, but it came down to that pressing. It was insane, and it was because it was the first British pressing of that recording. I've bought 5 copies since trying to replicate it, and I've never done it since.
That's incredible.
So I just need to steal my mates.
It's like, just go get that.
It's just.
I think that's the great segue into analog versus digital. In that big revolution, I got a digital watch in the 70s.
Well done.
My first watch, my parents bought me, had a NATO strap on it. And it was a mechanical watch. It was a beautiful watch. It worked quite well for a long time. I was 10, and so what was that? Sort of 79.
1780.
Yeah, about the same age you were when you got your watch. And that was great. And then they bought me that digital in the probably 81, 82, which was that copy of Roger Moore's Bond watch. I got another digital watch, and as soon as I was able to afford my own watch, I went straight back to self-winder, a mechanical watch, because the wonderful interaction of human to mechanical thing, the more we move away from the human interaction into a mechanical thing, the less the mechanical thing means anything. Digital watch is just a box with magic in it.
Correct.
Whereas the analog watch, I mean, this great thing, I love this thing. It's a copy of an IWC.
It looks like a Spitfire, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Steinhardt. I love the watch. But that interaction is like driving a manual car.
Right.
It's like playing a vinyl record. The CD is always going to be exactly the same thing. Yeah. But the vinyl record has got, you have to pick up an arm, you've got to pick up the toner, put it on. Yeah. And it's that interaction. It's like a steam engine or a diesel engine.
And then the comparisons we get all the time.
Yeah, I always talk about like a Japanese tea process,
ceremony.
As opposed to a tea bag.
Ceremonies, you have to, whatever they do.
I rotate 3 times.
Yeah, all of that. And it's the same with and these things force you to slow down and to actually think about who created it. Yeah. The beauty of it. You throw it on a record.
And be part of life.
It's an effort. You have to get out of the chair. You have to.
Yeah, you really got to want to listen to that song, don't you?
Put it on, and there's no way you're getting up after the first track. It's like, no, we're going to let that go because it was created like that.
Yeah, and plus I've got to get up and do it.
30-minute, like there was so much purpose put into this track after that track after that one. It was a story.
Imagine listening to Tubular Bells on a CD but on a record, you're listening to it for, how long does the song go? About 17 minutes or something. It's incredible. So you must get that. or whether you put it on 33 or 45 or 78. So what are your clients talking to you? What are your clients? They're obviously into analog.
Yeah. Into analog?
Yeah,
nah.
into mechanical.
They're definitely, Sorry, no digital, all analog, all automatic and manual wind.
So what... Is there a type of person that comes in to buy these, or is it across the board?
You mean
why?
Watches? Or
So they're coming to you to buy beautiful mechanical timepieces.
Yeah, that's everybody now. I mean, I even have ladies now that, they used to be happy with the quartz movement, but now they're saying, no, we prefer the automatic. And people are starting, like you said, to appreciate the the mechanism. They're appreciating the craftsmanship behind them. A lot of people want to see a see-through case back. You know, that's why Rolex, I think, are starting to introduce some see-through case backs, because for many years their watches were professional built, and they were built for diving or flying and things like that. I didn't need to see the movement. That watch was just meant to do its job, and now they're changing that. And that's, again, like, go back to Langer, because you flip that over and you can't help but be in awe.
Oh, it's the most beautiful thing.
It is, and so that sells the watch.
Yeah,
I mean, how boring is a digital where you push the button, the light lights up, you see big numbers. I've got a digital watch. It's my phone. I don't need another one.
So when digital came in, it was a flash in the pan. They thought it was going to change the whole game and take away from. It went out.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
But so fast forward to, I don't know, maybe I'm dating myself. How long have we had smart watches out for? 10 years? So
I reckon 10 years. 10 years. Yeah. And everybody thought we were going to be out of business. They came in and proudly broadcasted, the iPhone watch, the iWatch is out. And I said, it can't. Yeah. It just can't take over.
I think
it's replaceable after a year.
So who's buying?
That's awesome.
Who's buying that smartwatch?
The tracking device, you mean?
Who is buying the tracking device? I like your thinking. Moon landings, vaccines. I know what you're saying.
This is just a sales pitch to get everybody out of the.
So who's buying your tracking device, and where is that going? Yeah. What's that doing?
Yeah. So we had people in the beginning, right, that generally thought this is the new way for watches, and they all went out and they bought their watches, and they bought their iWatches. 3 years in, they almost stopped wearing them and were back on analog, on mechanical and manual wind.
Yeah.
Now I see everybody who has a iWatch wear it on their right. If you left, you wear it on the left, you wear it on the right. Yeah. And it is literally a step counter or a heartbeat monitor,
and they're all downloading a Breitling.
Yes, or a Rolex. You've seen that,
or a Rolex, right. So you can see. So have a look at my very, very. Here's my smartwatch, but I've got an app to make it look like.
But where's the nostalgia in that? Where is the meaning? There's nothing.
You're not handing that down, are you?
Exactly right, and that's what happened, and that's what changed very quickly. Yeah. People just went, "What do you mean, Apple are releasing another one this year, and I've got to upgrade it, or I've got to download some software?" Yeah. So it's not a watch; it's a phone again, and. And we knew that was going to happen. I mean, you can't take away from beautiful art.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? To have a screensaver on your laptop. They're not the same things.
Exactly. Yeah. Tell us about your customers. What's the most crazy request you've had?
Oh, I've got some eccentric customers, but I've got.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. Do you know
what names and addresses?
Yeah. That's right. Where do they live? I've got a. Early on in the days, I learned not to judge a book by its cover. I had a gentleman walk in and ask for a special watch worth about $150,000, and I just went, whatever, mate. He was in a tracksuit, this and that, and didn't think much of him. And one of the staff came over and said to me, "Do you know who that guy is?" I said, "No." He goes, "He's worth about $100 million." And I thought,
this is a pretty common story.
Yeah, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to change that attitude very quickly, because he didn't like me very much in the beginning. And we joke about that story now because we go out for drinks. But and I feel bad about that. I've got customers, and I don't know if any other industry is like this. I've got customers that come in daily.
Wow.
To see us, whether it's to look at watches or whether it's to talk and communicate.
Daily.
Yeah. It does take some toll. Sometimes, because I wonder what, I joke with the staff and I say, if they walked into Mercedes or Toyota, would they just call security if it happened daily? Yeah. But we've.
Are they buying?
No. Yes, they buy, but, not every day.
No, of course not. No, but I'm saying that.
Yeah, they buy. They're customers. Okay. And they're very lovely. There's nothing wrong with it. But, you start to go, I had a conversation yesterday. What can I talk about today?
Yeah.
And if this goes on for a week, and then if they, leave that for 8 weeks, it's great, because you're like, where you've been.
Yeah,
you
catch
know.
up.
What have you been doing? But okay, so the butcher sold you 4 chops yesterday,
Correct.
and 2 were off.
It's like that.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah, and it gets hard because you don't know what to do after a while. You sort of go, you know everything about these people.
so what do you do? That's a really. I'm so glad I don't have a shop.
Yeah.
What's a common misconception about high net worth individuals? Like,
So just going with the other thing as well, like a lot of clients, what I've noticed is a lot of people who come in dressed head to toe in Louis Vuitton and Gucci don't have any money.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that to be disrespectful by any means. They've got money, but I mean serious money.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. My clients who are on another level of wealth, just jeans and a t-shirt. And I know that now.
But it'd be a worn out, very good quality pair of jeans and a.
It doesn't
nice
bother
t-shirt.
them. It doesn't bother them. They're not even thinking about that. They've got a Richard Mille on at $500,000 with some Asics.
And some Kmart jeans.
Yeah, it doesn't, because they're going to go jump in their Toyota, but they've got $65 million worth of property because that car is going to devalue and they don't want that product.
They want an asset.
They want an asset.
Yeah.
And these are the smart people.
Yeah.
Now, you need the other people because that's what gives you that prestige and that look, you know, because that Rolex goes with that Gucci belt and that Louis Vuitton pair of shoes. But the other side are on a whole nother level where they're buying Richard Mille and they're buying Patek Philippe at $1 million, but they're not showing it because even if they did, you wouldn't know what it was. And I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to attract that clientele.
Yep.
But that's a hard clientele to break into because they have strong relationships and trusts with their authorized dealers.
Yeah.
And rightfully so, because nobody talks about them. You know, if you're that willy-nilly customer that's very loud, like the ones in a lot of them in Sydney and stuff, you want to show your face, there is potential that you're going to be talked about by everybody. But that serious customer collector, he will deal with one person only. And you're not to talk about him. And I like that.
Yeah. That's going to take you years to build that up.
I've got that.
Yeah.
I've got
Because
that
you've
already.
been doing it for years.
Yeah. And anybody who thinks that they can come in and do that off the bat.
Yeah.
Our generation now loves to talk. We're a social media snap generation. And I see a lot of this happening, especially with these young guys coming through. Everyone's a watch dealer, especially during COVID. Everybody had a little website, a little Instagram page, and they were buying and selling watches and trying to make $350 to $500. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Yeah. And we all laughed at that, and it hasn't lasted.
But it's the desperation of people who are hungry.
Correct.
Yeah.
And good on them.
And chances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the true watch game dealers that have lasted have built strong relationships for 20, 30 years, and they do not discuss their clients and they trust them immensely. If you're going to give, I know guys who give their authorized dealer, I would say authorized dealer, sorry, their pre-owned dealers, $1 million in a bank account to make sure that they buy that watch over the table when it comes in off something they want.
Wow.
Yeah.
As a retainer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool. To me, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like if you can go, I don't need that $1 million, give it to you. Keep an eye out for that Paul Newman Daytona. When that arrives in mint condition, you make sure you grab that for me.
So that's an interesting, that I think we've both had the same thing with our clients. If you promote and brag about what you do so you can get work, you don't get it because the customers you want don't want that.
Correct.
So you have to spontaneously occur in the marketplace being the person that your potential client wants to get the work. And it's really, really hard. It's taken me 15 years to get to the point where I've got to, where I don't talk about or promote the business. So I've just got clients coming in. And how... So for the people who are watching at the moment who are thinking about, I've got this great brand and I want to be in this space. I'm doing this. I'm a designer. I'm making wonderful stuff. I'm selling a product which is extremely high end. The people who want it don't want anyone to know.
if I promote it, they're not interested in being part of that. So how do I just get to that industry? How do I get into that marketplace with my wonderful product that they need to have, which if I promote it, they're not going to. It's a bit of a catch-22.
It is. And I think what you need, what worked for me, and I definitely won't mention this person's name because he's extremely well-known.
Sure.
Worldwide. But I needed one person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you have one celebrity, whatever you want to call it, who then tells a friend or in the same arena, then that's where it starts.
Yeah.
You need one.
Snowball.
I think it snowballs, yeah. And I think a lot of the really good stuff like you're talking about. If this is why these companies try and reach out to like the Kardashians and things like that, and they try and get them on board, and then they send them free gifts, and they get, oh look, they're wearing my product and things like that. That's their way of trying to do it. I don't agree with that way, but that's the way they do it. I think if you can if by chance somehow, I don't know how, I don't have the answer to that, but if you can have one person of a high net worth or high sort of status and you do the right thing by them, that's what you need.
So what's the advice? Make the
best product you can,
and just generate awareness of your product, and then work your networks and find someone who can get you a link to someone who can get you a link to someone.
Correct.
Is that
and
it?
Concentrate on the right person. Don't just give your product to anybody, because they can ruin your product pretty quickly. With
and
branding.
those high profile international celebrities, A-listers who were on some sort of variety show and all of a sudden shot to, who their entire fame is based around the notion of their fame, and it's very shallow and insincere. They're building their success on being shallow and sincere, and I don't think you want their products in their hands.
Well, you look at Rolex, for instance, they sponsor their major sort of person that they collaborate with is Roger Federer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he's the best in his game that has ever been. Nothing less would, and exactly, and nothing, and that establishes the same aura as what the brand is established with, and so they go hand in hand with each other. Then you've got the opposite. Then you've got Patek Philippe, who don't have anybody. There isn't a single person that they need because their company does all of that for itself.
Complete opposite strategy to Richard Mille.
Correct. Where they're just pumping out Formula One drivers, tennis players.
Any high achiever.
Yeah. So isn't that funny? You got three different fantastic brands doing really well with three different marketing.
That is very interesting.
So is it because Patek Philippe have been around for 120
125 years,
they did all that 125 years ago, and they stopped doing it 100 years ago, and they're on the legacy of that because everyone who knows.
Well, they've always considered themselves the best brand in the world. So I love this about them. So they go, okay, during war times, the soldiers are going to wear Rolex, but we'll make sure we give the captain the Patek. That's how they did it. There's stories about this, which is cool.
That is cool.
Like the world was literally burning, and they're still thinking about marketing and building up that brand rather than, hey, let's retool up to make
machine guns.
Yeah.
Want ammunition.
But that's what helps Switzerland survive. The war was watchmaking.
Yeah. That's insane, isn't it?
I mean, they all migrated from the UK, the US to Switzerland.
Into when the country was neutral.
Correct. And every little individual shop down a whole street used to make an individual part for a watch. And you used to just, I'll go get my dial, I'll get my hands, I'll get my my hammer.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it's fantastic. I mean, and it still is today. If you go to Geneva, there's companies there that have been there since, war times that are still operating, little watch boutiques, little watch shops, little watchmakers. I mean, we just don't have that here. We don't have 100. What are we? 100-something years old in Australia?
Yeah.
I got two more questions for you. Why bricks and mortar? Why in a day that's
Trust.
so online?
Trust. I'm from a day. I still to this day, my wife hates me. She'll try and buy me something online.
But she still lives with you.
Yeah, she still lives with me.
And the shotgun.
I tell her I need to go into the shop and I need to try it on. How are you going to buy I don't know how anybody can go and buy a Rolex online and go,
I'm going to butt
please
in
be
here.
real.
Jeremy, can you remember that, please, next time you pair of boots online and think these are going to work, and then you think they don't fit, what's going on?
I mean, I just don't
remember
have
the wisdom of this
the
conversation.
How do you, I mean, what do you do if you need to return it? I'll just go, you know what? I'm not going to wear these. I'll put them in the cupboard.
It's too hard.
Or try to sell them on some sort of gum nut or something, or We Treat. No, it hasn't.
It's a little bit different with $300 boots to a $20,000 Rolex.
Yeah,
Or watch,
yeah.
you know, and that's where Rolex have done really well. They don't sell online. You can't find it unless it's pre-owned. You can't buy a new one online, and I love that. Same as Patek.
That's
Go to an authorized dealer. Go see someone who knows what they're talking about, and
if
get
you're
that
going to
service.
do that, you just want that. You want that interaction. You want to be there. I'm going to buy a watch. Take me through the process.
Book an appointment.
Yeah,
Come
as
in, sit
opposed
down.
to, hello, I've got a parcel for you. Oh, great, that's my Rolex. And then there's no fanfare. There's no ceremony. It's
Correct.
It's the opposite of a funeral. You want the thing to celebrate the arrival.
I'm going to lie, there's one more. Is it a challenge to maintain a bricks and mortar store in this market?
That's a good question. Yes, it's always been a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's ever been easy. COVID times were great because, you know, you'd almost just the customers would roll in. You know, we all thought we were going to go broke and become janitors. Everybody did. And the next minute, you know, we're all sitting here rolling in money, aren't we? But it does take staff is hard. Yeah. It takes a lot of effort with staffing. It takes a lot of effort to maintain a brand, such as, you know, our company. Mm-hmm. You need to always be at the forefront, and you need to be, you know, you can't do anything wrong. I can't go out on a Saturday night and make an absolute fool of myself, because if I go to a restaurant and I've got 3 clients there, I'm representing still.
All right, so we're on to the last question of the evening.
All right, go for it.
We ask all our guests this question. How do you define success?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that.
Well, I did tell you.
Well, then you should have a good answer.
You know what? I did think about it. I actually thought about it last night.
Good.
And
Good man.
people are going to come to you, I think, and they're going to define success in many different ways, and they're usually going to relate it to their work and things like that. For me, and I say this to my wife regularly, I've succeeded if my children grow up and they still think we're cool and want to hang out with us. That means everything to me.
I love that.
Yeah. I see a couple of friends of mine with some older kids, and they come over for dinner still with their partners. They go on holidays together overseas. And I look at that, and I don't envy anybody, and I think it's a horrible thing to do. But when I see that, I admire it so much, and I think you've succeeded. Yeah, and I want that for me. Yeah. So that's success for me.
Michael, beautiful words. Thank you so much. It's been
Appreciate
fascinating.
Very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, guys.
That's wonderful.
Thank you. And to the listeners, I hope that you enjoyed that as much as we did. Thanks for listening to the show. And if you'd like to find out more about Chiron Audio or Devison Design and how we can create bespoke luxury environments and experiences in your life, you are more than welcome to book a call with one of our principals through our websites, chironaudio.com.au or devisondesign.com.au. Many thanks goes to our producer, Marcus Franks, and our editor, Jeremy Devison. Make sure you hit subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next episode. Please take the time to leave us a comment, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Tales from the Top.